The learner, welcome. You're here, I imagine, because you want to really get under the skin of a topic, understand it quickly, but uh, thoroughly without feeling swamped.
And that's our aim. Today's Deep Dive focuses on Kevin Caldwell. He's a Navy veteran.
Right, and his experiences, particularly his interactions with the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and some other federal agencies, is quite a story.
It really is. And for this, we look at quite a mix of things. Caldwell's own posts on LinkedIn, Quora too. There was a YouTube interview he did.
We also have a settlement letter from the U.S. Office of Special Counsel. Formal stuff.
Yeah, plus news articles, government reports, context about alleged issues at VA hospitals generally.
So our mission today, it's really to unpack Kevin Caldwell's journey, specifically as a whistleblower within the VA system.
We want to understand the claims he made, what he says happened in terms of retaliation, and what his story might tell us about the wider system.
Exactly. The challenges veterans can face, getting care, getting support. It's one person's path, but we think it's got some really specific details, maybe some of those aha moments.
Okay, let's jump in then.
Right. So Caldwell, U.S. Navy veteran. And he starts with this, well, pretty extraordinary claim
Which is?
that he deliberately used drugs intentionally
Yeah.
as part of some kind of personal investigation into corruption within the DEA.
Wow, okay. That's unexpected.
Yeah. He frames it as a deliberate effort. Talks about moving to Hawaii at his own expense, being under surveillance, he alleges, in Puerto Rico, Puerto Vallarta.
All tied to this self-started DEA probe.
That's his narrative. And he connects this, interestingly, to a real event, a narcotics bust at the VA Medical Center in Riviera Beach.
Ah, okay. And news reports did confirm that bust happened, multiple arrests and so on.
It did. So it does suggest, context where issues around narcotics within the VA system weren't completely unheard of.
Right, it sets a backdrop for his later actions. Because his focus seemed to shift, didn't it? From the DEA, more towards the VA itself, specifically Miami VA.
Exactly. Fox News and others reported on his allegations there. He went public.
About what specifically?
Alleged drug abuse inside the Miami VA hospital. He talked about cover-ups of theft, even a big fraud and bribery scheme.
The one the Department of Justice eventually brought charges over, against several people.
That's the one. So you see this pattern emerging, the learner. Caldwell identifying and reporting things he sees as wrong, first maybe externally with the DEA, then internally within the VA.
Yeah, in this early part, it really flags the risks, doesn't it? When someone decides to be an internal watchdog, it's not just finding the problem.
It's navigating how to report it and the potential fallout.
Which brings us to the settlement agreement, or the proposed one.
Right. From the U.S. Office of Special Counsel, OSC. They handle whistleblower retaliation cases. Right?
They do. So this letter, September 1st, 2017, Timothy Chang from OSC. It lays out terms for settling litigation Caldwell had with the VA.
Okay, what were the terms?
Well, first, his removal from his job, but specifically citing medical inability to perform essential functions.
Which usually points towards disability retirement.
Exactly. Under FERS, the Federal Employees Retirement System, it implies he'd be presumed eligible for that.
Makes sense. What else?
$50,000 in damages. Also, the VA covering his medical insurance premiums until OPM, Office of Personnel Management, decided on the disability retirement.
And a clean record, wiping the slate clean.
And a clean record, yeah. Seems pretty comprehensive on paper. Covers job status, money, health, reputation.
But Caldwell's take is that the VA didn't quite stick to that initial plan. He says they backtracked.
That's his assertion, yes.
Yeah.
The final outcome was a bit different. He did get the disability retirement. He did keep his FEHB health insurance.
FEHB, Federal Employees Health Benefits Program.
Right. And interestingly, Caldwell himself has apparently said that this outcome, retirement plus FEHB, was actually maybe financially better for him long-term than just the $50,000 payout.
Huh. That's a twist. So the original deal wasn't necessarily the best one for him anyway.
Potentially not in the long run. But there's a legal snag here, too.
Which is?
Apparently, a judge ruled you can't offer disability retirement as part of a settlement. It's an earned benefit based on criteria.
Ah, I see. It's not a bargaining chip. It's something you either qualify for or you don't.
Precisely. And another point of contention for Caldwell,
Hmm.
even though he's reportedly 100% VA-rated disabled, he still pays, I think it's $379 a month for his health insurance out of his retirement.
And he feels under the original settlement terms, that cost should have been covered fully without him paying.
That seems to be his interpretation, yeah. That the VA should cover the premiums directly, not just provide a stipend that might not cover the full cost.
So this whole settlement saga, it really shows how messy these things can get, even with official bodies like the OSC involved.
Absolutely. It highlights the tricky spot whistleblowers can be in. Agreements might be reached, but the power dynamics, the bureaucracy, the final result can still feel, well, unsatisfactory or confusing.
Yeah, really underscores the complexity. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about his direct experiences actually using VA healthcare. He had a story about needing a urology consult.
Oh, yeah. This one really paints a picture of potential bureaucratic hurdles. He needed this consult, right, through community care.
Community care being where the VA pays for care outside its own facilities.
Exactly, meant to improve access. But he describes a 6-month delay just getting the request resubmitted. 6 months,
Just for the paperwork.
apparently.
Yeah.
He says the chief of urology eventually had to step in. He finally gets the appointment with the community doctor.
Okay, so progress.
Well, the doctor prescribes medication, but then the VA takes 2 weeks to deny the prescription.
Wait, deny the prescription from the specialist they sent him to?
That's what he reports. And the final kicker. After this whole 7-month process,
Yeah.
the VA paid, I think, $175 for the consult, but the community care provider charged $245.
Leaving him potentially on the hook for the difference, or just highlighting the discrepancy?
It highlights the disconnect, certainly. A 7-month wait for a consult, prescription denied, payment issues. It doesn't scream efficiency.
No, it really doesn't. It sounds incredibly frustrating. He also mentioned something about dental care, cooking the books.
He did allude to that, yeah.
Yeah.
The sources didn't give a lot of detail, but it adds to this this sense he has of potential administrative issues or lack of transparency.
Right. But then, in contrast, he mentions a huge surgery.
Yeah, a $25 million spine surgery, which he says was fully paid for by his FEHB insurance, his federal employee health plan.
25 million. Wow. So huge difference there between navigating the VA process for the urology consult versus using his FEHB for the major surgery.
It really highlights potential disparities, doesn't it, depending on which system or benefit you're accessing.
Definitely. Now, what about the retaliation claims? These seem pretty serious. He said he was offered money.
$50,000, allegedly, specifically linked to his whistleblowing, offered as, well, essentially hush money or compensation for retaliation.
That's a very direct accusation against the VA.
It is. And it doesn't stop there. He also claims extensive monitoring.
Like what?
He believes the VA monitored his social media pages basically 24/7. He mentioned changes to posting restrictions on VA-related pages, making it hard to see who wrote what.
Trying to obscure comments or commenters?
That seems to be the implication. And then there's the alleged hacking.
Hacking his personal account.
His Apple ID, specifically. He detailed how it was allegedly changed from his email to an iCloud account. Said he was suddenly unfriended from VA profiles online.
And who does he think did this?
He points fingers at law enforcement, maybe DHS, Department of Homeland Security, or even the VAMC police, the VA's own police force. He suggested they were controlling his Facebook, deleting his replies.
Okay, those are, really significant claims. Government agencies, hacking accounts, controlling social media. If true, that's deeply concerning.
Absolutely. It raises big questions about surveillance, potential overreach, and whether protections for whistleblowers are adequate, especially online.
Yeah. So looking at Caldwell's own perspective now, how does he seem to view all this? He mentioned fighting fire with fire.
He did. There's a sense of maybe necessary combativeness that came out of his experiences, but also some regret, particularly about how his initial fight, the DEA stuff, unfolded. He admitted making choices he wasn't proud of.
Seems like a tough road. He also had some direct messages, didn't he, to someone called Duo GE.
Yeah, that was striking. It's unclear who exactly Duo GE is, but he urged them to handle contracts properly and focus on town hall meetings with veterans. Direct engagement.
Suggesting maybe a lack of transparency or direct communication currently.
That seems to be his point. He wants more direct lines between the VA leadership and the veterans themselves.
And he's pretty critical of the VA and Congress overall, right?
Very critical. Doesn't hold back. He alleges veterans are being targeted on social media, phones hacked.
And he links this to veteran suicide rates.
He makes that connection, yeah. Suggesting these actions contribute to the stress and despair leading to the high suicide rates, which is a huge ongoing issue.
He also called out his congresswoman by name, Sheila McCormick?
Yes, accused her of not helping veterans, focusing on immigration instead. Again, very pointed criticism, reflecting deep frustration.
And frustration with the budget, too. He mentioned the overall VA budget.
Yeah, something like $360 billion. He contrasts that massive figure with the difficulties and he implies many of the 20 million veterans face actually accessing the care and support that budget is supposed to provide.
So it's a feeling of where is all that money going if we can't get basic things done efficiently?
That's the sentiment that comes across strongly.
Yeah.
A disconnect between the resources allocated and the lived experience of trying to navigate the system.
Okay, so let's try to pull this together then for the learner. What are the main takeaways from diving into Kevin Caldwell's experiences?
Well, we started with serious allegations of misconduct, drug issues, fraud within the VA, which prompted his whistleblowing.
Right. Then we saw this really complex settlement process. An initial deal proposed by the Office of Special Counsel, claims of backtracking.
An eventual outcome involving disability retirement that, while maybe financially okay in some ways for Caldwell, still left lingering issues like those health insurance premiums.
And his personal struggles with VA healthcare access were pretty stark. That urology consult story.
Yeah, highlighting major delays, communication breakdowns, prescription denials, payment issues, even when using the community care system designed to help.
And finally, these really serious claims of retaliation. The alleged $50K offer, the intense monitoring, the alleged hacking.
It paints a picture, from his perspective, of a potentially hostile environment for someone raising concerns.
So this deep dive, it really gives you that ground level view, doesn't it? Beyond the policy headlines, what it can feel like inside the system.
Definitely. And I think, for me, some of the surprising bits were just how convoluted that settlement negotiation became, even with OSC involved.
Yeah, and the sheer difficulty described in getting that urology consult done, something seemingly routine turning into a months-long saga.
Exactly. It takes these potentially abstract systemic issues, bureaucracy, whistleblower protections, healthcare access, and makes them very concrete, very personal through his story.
So the learner, as you think about Kevin Caldwell's journey, all these allegations, what does it make you consider about accountability, about how we support veterans?
Yeah, what are the broader implications here for oversight within big government agencies?
Yeah.
The relationship between whistleblowers and the systems they report on.
And ultimately for the well-being of people who've served. It definitely raises more questions.
It does. Maybe questions worth exploring further, perhaps looking into some of those reports and articles yourself.
Absolutely. It's complex stuff. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.